what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down, whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and videocast known internationally as the world-famous Smoking and Toasting. Michael, we have explained this on the show before, but you may not know that we decided that the show was world-famous when I realized that my mom, who doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, and doesn't approve of those that do, actually found out about the show, because I never told her. So when she found out, I thought, okay, we're world famous at this point. And we've been rolling with that ever since. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Smoking and Toasting is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are show number 207 today.
Man, we're getting old.
With True Anomaly Brewing in the studio. We'll talk about that in just a moment. First of all, I have to tell you that we are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, a great place to go on the... Yes, Ian is sporting a MyCigarShirts.com shirt right there. That's a good-looking shirt.
It says MyCigarShirts.com.
It certainly does, and a very familiar slogan there on the T-shirt.
It does.
There are all kinds of new things available as of this week at MyCigarShirts.com. There are now
I haven't even looked.
sweatshirts.
I'm going to have to check that out.
There are now sweatshirts. There's the very cool face mask that says, as soon as I take this off, I'm having a cigar.
Nice.
And so there's all kinds of great stuff for cigar smokers. And I know that if you are a cigar smoker, you'll find one you like. There's dozens and dozens of shirts and stuff on there now, so it's big fun. Check it out, MyCigarShirts.com, because cigars.
Because cigars.
So before we get started on anything like official on the show, Ian, I have what I hope is not bad news, but I guess one of our shows on YouTube got flagged for a music copyright because of the music that we use right after the intro, which is a song by an artist named Brother Love. And my use of that song goes all the way back to my early podcasting days. I had one of the first alternative music podcasts that was out there back when there were.
So is that what happened to last week's episode?
I know last week's episode's a whole different thing, which we'll get into later. But anyway, so I've had permission to use that song for years, but apparently YouTube flagged it. So we've sent them an explanation, and hopefully that will work. But if it doesn't, we're going to have to hunt for a new opening song again. Which
That's
we've already
frustrating.
Yes, it is. So anyway, keep your fingers crossed. So
Communicating with YouTube about any issue you have is...
Well, yeah, the good news is it'll take them at least a month to get back to us from the reply. So
at least, yeah.
In the meantime, we'll just enjoy continuing with the Little Brother Love. Michael Duckworth is in the studio with us today. Michael is with True Anomaly Brewing, one of the up-and-coming craft breweries here in the greater Houston area, which is where we do the show. In fact, you're right in the sort of near downtown, east downtown area of Houston. Yeah. And how long has True Anomaly been open?
We've been there about a year and a half now.
That's what I thought. Okay, so I'll tell you how I discovered you guys, and apparently Ian discovered you before I did, because you've actually been to the brewery, haven't you?
Yeah, we were walking. Me and my wife were walking around in that area, and this would have been about a year ago, so you guys would have been pretty new. We were walking around in that area just looking for stuff to do, and we happened by a brewery and sat out on the front. You've got that little concrete area in the front. We sat out basically by the curb and had our beers and enjoyed our time.
Welcome. Yeah, the patio's a little better outfitted now. So
yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, so I'll have to go down that area.
For sure.
I may actually be able to see you from my balcony because I live downtown, and I've got a pretty good view of that whole St. Emmanuel Street area from my floor. But I discovered you guys just a couple of weeks ago, actually, when I was, getting some stories ready that we were going to talk about on the show, and I came across one about how the Great American Beer Festival, the big event in Colorado every year, was having to do it totally virtual this year. And so they had this virtual thing where you could buy a pass, and it was good at different breweries, and you could try different things and participate in the whole beer festival. And so I went to the site and just entered my my zip code to see who was participating in Houston, and you guys popped up because you're really close to me. So, so I was like, oh, we got to have these guys on. So, and then what was really cool is last week I was in the Specs downtown, and saw your beer. It was the first time I'd seen your beers in the spec store. Maybe I was just looking for it, but they had a great little display there with a lot of the different beers. So we're really excited to be trying some of those on the show today.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. We'll also be trying some tequila, and this is a brand new, well, it's new to me. I always say brand new, and then I look and find it's been out for a long time. I just haven't noticed it, or maybe they just started stocking it near me. But this one is new to me. It is Mikko Tequila. It's or Tequila Mico, I think is the way you say it. It is an Anejo, and as you can tell, Ian, it is not entirely new to me now because...
Well,
There's been a little,
you are gracious enough when you bring in a bottle to make sure that we don't have to go through the awkward opening it ourselves.
Yeah, because sometimes
on
that cellophane
camera.
stuff is more difficult than you might think. So,
and though I have a pocket knife, I don't even need to get it out of my pocket.
That's right. I do it for you.
You're pretty amazing like that.
I'm good like that. I really am. So anyway, a lot of good stuff coming up on the show today. In addition to tasting some True Anomaly beers, we will be tasting that tequila. We will have drinking news. Our headline today:
Drinking news.
Don't let Donald drive. So
I have no idea what's going on.
We'll leave that.
It makes
for a
me
little
think of
while.
those. Remember those? Was it
Friends?
Progressive or Geico had the commercial like people do weird things with cars, and there's the guy talking. And he's like, "I don't think you ever listen to me anymore. Why are you driving this way?" And then there's a dog driving his truck.
Well, let me ask you this question: was the commercial funny?
Yes, it was entertaining.
Then it was definitely not a Progressive
It was
commercial.
not Progressive.
It was definitely a Geico. Progressive does have one funny commercial, and the rest of them, I just like. I almost have to leave the room. They're so bad when they come on, and I can't fast forward through them. But they have the one funny one about the guy who teaches you not to be like your parents. That one's.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that one's
It's
pretty funny.
Pretty recent.
But Flo and
Not a
all
fan of
that
Flo.
stuff. Oh God. It's just awful.
Oh, that's right. It must have been Geico.
Yeah. Geico's, well, during the pandemic, I've noticed, because Geico runs lots of TV ads, I've noticed they've been recycling a bunch of their old ones, and it's been fun to see some of the older ads again, because, let's face it, not very many commercials are really that entertaining.
Especially for car insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
And theirs are pretty good.
That's
They
not
really
a very
are.
entertaining category.
No, it really isn't.
So kudos to them for really bringing it out.
Yeah, car insurance and toilet paper.
Speaking of car
think it's
insurance, I
hard.
got yet another crack in my windshield. So I got this big crack in my
You've got
windshield.
this-
and
you have the newest vehicle of anyone I know. Your truck is like it's like barely even off the lot. You got another crack in your windshield?
Yeah, so after the first one, I was like, I got to pay the deductible and everything else because for whatever reason, I have an expensive windshield. And I thought, well, I'll just hang on to it for a little bit. So, yeah, I got another big crack. So now I guess it's time to actually
I was going to say,
buckle
aren't you
down and
glad you didn't
replace it,
spend the money
right?
already? Yeah.
Not to mention about 3 other good-sized chips in it.
Yeah. Well,
So apparently I drive behind dump trucks.
Apparently you
I
do.
need to stop doing that.
I have a
It's user error at some point.
It's got to be, right?
I have a small car which sits pretty low on the road. So I generally don't even like driving behind SUVs because I can't see.
Right.
So I'd stay as far away as I can from some of those big trucks. So, other things to talk about on the show today. There is a problem threatening craft brewers. We will share that with you, and we'll let Michael weigh in on it from his company's
Can I guess?
perspective. Yeah.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
When we get there.
Yeah, when we get there. Fair enough. Also, there is a new article out about 11 new Scotch bottles to try right now.
Right now.
And so that's our favorite headline
Right.
Attention grabber when they
Things you have to do
right
right
now.
now.
It's like,
Yesterday.
I can't wait to read this article and try these tomorrow. I have to try them right now.
Right now.
So we'll look forward to sharing that with you. Synthetic alcohol may soon be available that doesn't leave you with a hangover. We'll share that with you. Yeah, I know. That just seems very Star Trek to me. You know what I mean? Because they go into the bar there on the ship
Captain,
and
there's an anomaly.
they get that synthahol. So we have True Anomaly Brewing with us today. So that
All coming together.
See how it all ties together, Ian. You're so good like that.
That's pretty awesome.
You're also a pretty good, pretty good detector of what's going on in a cigar. And I'm wondering if you have anything to share with us about something you may have smoked this week that's been interesting.
You know what? I can do that. I smoked a Cohiba Siglo 1.
Oh,
Cuban cigar.
color me impressed.
This is a 4x40 Petite Corona, so pretty small cigar, too.
Yeah.
Appearance is light brown. veiny, single band, firm to the touch overall. It's not it's got the classic Cohiba band. It's not like a particularly outstanding looking cigar. It just looks nice. Looks like a cigar.
How high was your confidence that it really was a Cuban?
Pretty high.
Okay.
Like real high, actually.
Okay.
And I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Here, I'll talk about a little bit about that right now. It comes in a box, first off. It's a little boxed one. And on the inside of the box, the whole print that the box is made out of, the inside of the box is covered with the word Cohiba all on the inside and everything like that. And I highly doubt if someone's making
that they're going to go to that much trouble.
Counterfeits, that they're going to take the inside of the box and make sure it's printed and embossed the way it is. And,
Gotcha.
Again, the box wasn't just printed; it was embossed. A lot of those, it's very tactile.
It's a good way to tell, actually, if you might be dealing with a real one versus a fake.
So I'm highly confident that this was the real deal. Appearance-wise, the cigar looks like a cigar. It's a nice light brown Connecticut style wrapper. Looks nice, single band, firm. Overall to the touch, pre-light sniff, hints of chocolate, cedar, and fermented hay. Nice. A real pleasant, not a real strong, but a real pleasant smell to it. The pre-light draw is a little tight draw, actually. I used a clip on it, a little bit of a tight draw, lots of cedar, chocolate, nuttiness, hints of coffee going on when I did that. When I first lit it, a blast of earthy spices.
Nice.
I mean, it really just super earthy and spicy overall, super complex. Leather, mocha, coffee, a little silky sweet smoke that I really enjoyed going on there. The first third of the cigar, cedar and tangy leather interplay with earthy spices, including pepper and a little bit of black licorice going on in there. A real silky sweet sweetness in the smoke. The way the smoke kind of fills them out, that just left this real nice sweetness to it. Mostly even burn, solid ash on it. The second third of this, more sweetness development, toffee or caramel flavors going on a little bit in it. The earthy spices and pepper are constant throughout. Hints of coffee and nuttiness. Uneven burn.
Oh.
All the way through the second third of this. Solid ash. By the third third of this, you can see that in the picture, the burn's pretty uneven. It's actually starting to canoe. So I tended the burn right there at the beginning of about the last third of this cigar. And pepper and licorice really picked up momentum. And the prevalent underlying sweetness just was a wonderful framework to the earthy spices going on all over the rest of the cigar. Mostly even burn for the rest of it. I tended it once; it burned pretty even all the way through. This was an incredibly complex cigar. It had lots of things going on. That earthiness just had tons of little details going on in there that I could sit and pick out if I had 5 of these cigars. This is about a half hour, 25-minute smoke. It's a small cigar.
I see you went all the way down to the nub there.
I did. I went way down to the nub. It was a great little cigar. I enjoyed it tremendously. It scores a very solid 5.
So, and 5, I'm guessing it would have done better, but Cubans are expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a $12 Petite Corona, $12 to $13 Petite Corona.
And quite frankly, you can pay a lot more than that for a Cuban, even the small ones.
I can buy 3 cigars that I really enjoy for the price of this one 4x40 cigar. Now, I am going to highly recommend this cigar if you find one, if you come across it. It's fantastic.
It's a great experience.
It is fantastic.
Yeah.
And for a cigar that is 4 inches by 40 ring gauge, to be worth $12 to $13 and still get a solid 5, I think realistically that's a pretty good rating.
So, Michael, our rating system that we use for cigars here on the show, we're definitely not experts. We just only can talk about how we felt about what we smoked. But we use a scale of 1 to 10, but on our scale, a 5 means you get exactly what you paid for.
Okay.
In other words, it was worth every penny that you paid for it. If it scores higher than a 5, it means it'd still be worth it even if the price were higher. And if it scores less than a 5, it could still be a good cigar, but maybe not as good as what you're used to being able to get at that price. So
it's
that's
really,
the way
really kind of built around the price point.
Yeah,
There.
absolutely.
Am I
It's-
getting
it's-
value for this
It's
product?
a price to quality index.
Price to quality index.
Yep.
And it's real hard when you start getting into expensive cigars for them to really get above a 5.
Well, that's
Just
right.
Because, if you're paying $13 or $18 or $25 for a cigar.
Yeah, as good as it may
Better be
be,
pretty
you're
damn
like,
good.
would you have been okay if it was 25? You know,
Right.
so that's definitely the way it can work. So, Well, I smoked a new one for me this week. I'm always on the lookout for things that I haven't tried before, and I was in Specs right after I was eyeing up the display of True Anomaly beers. I walked into the Specs humidor. They have a pretty nice one in the downtown Smith Street location, and noticed a cigar that I had not really paid much attention to before, had not smoked. It was the Hiram and Solomon line of cigars. I chose the Robusto, which is called the Master Mason. Now, when these pictures come up, you'll be able to see on the band the insignia on the band is the Freemasons.
The Freemasons
insignia, and I felt a little weird actually buying the cigar since it's made to honor the Brotherhood of Freemasons, and I'm not in the Freemasons.
And they're so secretive. What do they do?
Well, yeah, I'm not even sure what the Freemasons is. A golf club, a religion, a cult. I've been watching a lot of stuff about cults on TV lately that show The Vow, and I've been watching this series on Hulu with Aaron Paul called The Path, where he's in this cult and may want to get out. I don't know if he does or not. I'm not done with the series.
Have you watched the one with RuPaul?
No,
that's different.
No, that's a different one. But anyway, I'm watching a lot of stuff about cults lately, so I'm just not sure where the Freemasons line up. Is it, Scientology, Mormons, Nexium, Knights Templar, the Lions Club, Presbyterians? I don't know. So
Don't look like Presbyterians
it's a very secretive organization. That's all I know. Anyway. The cigar has got a dark Oscuro Habano wrapper. That's Oscuro is kind of when it's one step beyond Maduro,
yes,
and when it's just a little bit darker. And it's got an Indonesian
that's
Sumatra.
Beautiful. It's nearly black.
Yeah, and so you can see that Freemason symbol there.
Yep.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was a Gurkha when I first picked it up because Gurkha has some of those
from
cross
a distance
swords.
you see
Yeah. So, anyway, the filler tobacco is all Nicaraguan on this from several different regions of Nicaragua. Master Mason is apparently the top tier of the craft of masonry. So I guess the Freemasons at least started as almost like a trade union type thing for people that, did bricklaying and other masonry work. So anyway, if you're a Master Mason, you're at the top. So the cigar is presented obviously as being a very premium stick. Tobacco around the head of this cigar did crack a little bit when I used my punch. To be honest, that's probably my fault. I probably just punched it a little too hard, maybe didn't moisten it enough. But anyway, the pre-light was very nice. Earthy aromas, a little bit of a sweetness from the Oscuro wrapper, I think. A bit of initial pepper on the first puffs after I lit it up, but nothing too heavy or crazy. First third of the cigar was nice. Not incredible, but nice. I picked up notes of cedar, some toasted nuts, along with a little bit of a tea leaf note that was really nice. As it neared the
sounds like a nice cigar. So far.
As it neared the halfway point, I started to get a nice cocoa note and some spices that, to be totally honest, I never could quite identify. It was a good reminder for me that I don't have this cigar tasting thing completely figured out. Like there are notes.
It's a constant work.
Yeah, it is. It's a work in progress. There are notes that I go, that's something, but I don't know what it is. But that's I'm not sure anybody ever does figure it out, and I think that's probably part of the fun. The burn wasn't perfect, but it didn't need tending and smoked along just fine. A very tight ash stayed on the cigar all the way through the first third, and it dropped off in a nice big chunk when it did. In fact, one of the pictures you'll see here is of the chunk of the ash when it dropped off, and it's.
I take it you didn't drop it on yourself like I usually do.
I was very fortunate. I dropped it on the little table in front of me rather than on my shirt, Ian style. Final third ramped up in strength a little bit. There's the ash. I did enjoy the. Cocoa flavor becoming a little more prominent in it. Overall, it was full-bodied. It was very enjoyable. Not a standout, but very nice. The cigar sells for right around $10 for a Robusto. That makes it a little tough for me to rate it too high because for my palate, I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the, say, $8 Toros from, AJ or Rocky Patel or some of the things that I smoke pretty regularly. But it was a really nice smoke. So, price to quality, I will go ahead and give it a 5. At a lower price, I might rate it a little higher because it was really enjoyable. But if it was more than $10, I really would have been disappointed.
That sounds very nice.
Yeah, it was nice. Overall, I felt like it was nice. Very nice. Pretty good. Nice. So anyway, it's definitely worth trying out if you haven't had one and you're just looking to try different things. It was a bit different from some of the things that I've been smoking lately, even though I've been smoking a lot of Nicaraguan cigars, and this is a Nicaraguan tobacco, so it was definitely a different twist on that. So anyway, so that's my notes on the Master Mason. Perhaps someone in the show notes can help me understand what the Society of Freemasons actually does, because I don't think they're bricklayers anymore. I mean, I know they
don't get together and build walls, as far as I know.
There are still bricklayers, obviously, because you see brick buildings being built, but I just don't think those are the guys.
And they're known as Masons.
Running. Yes.
Now, the question is, are all
Freemasons,
Freemasons Masons?
I don't think so.
But not all Masons are Freemasons.
But I know my dad, when I was a kid, was in the Lions Club. And
I think that's right.
He definitely wasn't a Lion.
Are you a Mason?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No, but I mean, careful what you ask for. I think you might get some responses.
Well,
here.
you never know.
Well, I'm completely clueless.
Certainly, there are a lot of people we have learned over the 206 prior episodes. There are a lot of people who listen and watch this show that know a great deal more about pretty much everything we talk about than we do. So, if Wiki Brian is with us, he'll weigh in, I'm sure.
Yeah, I talk to him once in a while. He hasn't been on the show very much, but I talk to him outside the show once in a while. He's been apparently kind of busy at work, and they changed where he works, so he can't quite get away with hanging out with us on the show while he's at work anymore.
He's a fun one to have along, that's for sure.
He is.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, let the tasting begin. Really excited about digging into the beers from True Anomaly and finding out a little bit more about how this thing started. I will tell you that the word rocket scientist will be used in the description of the humble beginnings of True Anomaly Brewing.
There's anomalies and rocket science. Scientry.
You're beginning to see a pattern emerge.
Words.
Yes, yeah, and we'll invent more when we come back.
This is going to end up at Star Trek, isn't
it's
it?
Smoking and toasting. Live long and prosper, my cigar smoking friend. We'll be right back. All right. You want me to grab some? Or you grab? Okay. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We are thrilled to have you guys with us for episode number 207. By the way, in the notes on our Facebook feed, Austin says, "Glad to see you all back in the studio. When is the 100th episode, or did I miss it?" The 100th episode has happened, and it was almost 4 hours long. But we also, right in the middle of this whole pandemic thing, hit show number 200. We had planned to do, I don't know, like rent a ballroom or something, and
it was
just invite
big.
Everyone who loves anything and just drink and smoke like crazy. That unfortunately couldn't happen. We'll do something like that at some point to celebrate, but the 200th show was just Ian and me in the studio, day drinking. That was it.
I think we got pod crashed by Alan on that.
I believe we did. That's right. Our good friend Alan Denny.
I want to point out Jessica's laying down some knowledge. Jessica Kearns from
Barrel.
Barrel Bourbon. Sorry,
Yes.
Bourbon Barrel kept popping up in my head. I was like, no, that's not right. From Barrel Bourbon, she says lots of Masons are Freemasons, of course, but not all Freemasons are Masons.
Okay.
And then she says it's
Sounds
very
like a
much a
Dr. Seuss
fraternity,
rhyme,
like
doesn't it?
Lions Club or an Elks Lodge,
Okay.
which is good to know, but I don't know what either one of those.
What about
do
the
really
Royal
either.
Order of? What about the Royal Order of Water Buffalo? Is that real, or
with
was
the
that
Grand
I
Poobah?
guess it's the Simpsons thing, isn't it? Yeah, that's-
Flintstones? I think.
Yeah,
it was the
You're right.
Flintstones.
They had
Yeah,
another one. They had a different one.
The
on it.
Grand Poobah was the leader
The
of
Grand
it, right?
Poobah. That's like one of the greatest things ever. That was before the Flintstones jumped the shark when they added the Great Gazoo or whatever that little spaceman was that ruined
that
the
was
show.
so terrible.
He was the Scrappy Doo of the Flintstones.
Yeah,
That's
so
when they
funny.
jumped the shark.
Yeah, that is
That's
definitely.
when
Yeah, that's when it happened. It wasn't before then. No, it was then. Synthetic alcohol that doesn't cause hangovers or liver damage may be available within 5 years. Alcohol that makes you feel drunk without causing the hangover, according to researchers, is only about 5 years away. Now, on Star Trek, they call the synthetic alcohol synthahol, but Professor David
That's a
Nutt,
very creative name.
who has come up with this synthetic alcohol, he calls it Alcarel, which
not
that
any
makes
more appetizing.
that makes me think of Steve Carell, and I don't, and
Steve
while
Carell's
while I
lesser known brother.
while I enjoy his work, I don't know if I want my alcohol to remind me of him. Anyway, this professor who's come up with this formula says he believes it will change alcohol consumption once it is regulated. He previously worked as the government's chief drug advisor before. Oh my God, you can't make this stuff up. He previously worked as the government's chief drug advisor before he lost his job after claiming that ecstasy and LSD were less dangerous than alcohol.
Might have a point, though.
He might be right. Yeah, you can't always speak truth when you have a government job. In fact, I think the rule is you seldom speak truth when you have a government job. Anyway, he created this alcohol replacement molecule. The molecule is called Alcosynth. So I'd almost rather the stuff be called Alcosynth than Alcarel. Anyway, he came up to it after first discovering an antidote to alcohol in 1983 when he was still a PhD student. So he was studying the effects of alcohol and what have you.
Wait a minute, we have an antidote
to alcohol? I don't understand what
where
are
did
you
that come
fixing?
from?
We have an antidote to what we all do for a living. Think about that.
Almost
what are
40
we
years
fixing?
ago, we had an antidote, and we're just hearing about it now.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, because they figured out an antidote to alcohol and no one cares.
That's right.
Like, what the hell does it do?
The only people who want it don't drink. So
Yeah.
so there you go. We want to welcome once again Michael Duckworth from True Anomaly Brewing. Michael is here today with a number of really very cold and delicious looking
I'm
cans.
so thirsty.
Yeah, I bet you are. Michael, while you pour our first beer for us here, and by the way, we always try to pour some for the producer to keep him from asking for any kind of a raise or financial compensation for doing the show. But while you pour there, tell us a little bit about how you guys got started. And you said you've been open about a year and a half. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
About a year and a half or so. We were a bunch of NASA guys that started brewing in the garage like many other brewers that got their start. We were very, very fortunate to kind of come under the wing of some other home brewers that were, kind of old graybeards at the ranch there, NASA.
Is it true that most craft breweries
Nicely done.
start, as a home brewing experiment in a garage or someplace? I guess some of them may be started by master brewers from another brewery who move on and open their own place.
So I think the ones that are just startup, though, I think almost everyone we've ever talked to is like, this is how I started.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that's generally true. I mean, like any other passion, right? You do enough of it, spend enough time, put in those 10,000 hours. Next thing you know, you're pretty good at it.
So yeah,
And you go to the next
except
step.
for when you guys were heating up the war, you're using rocket fuel, right?
that's right.
We get a very quick boil.
Yes, I'm sure that's probably true. Now, just as someone who basically was there at the beginning in the garage, how many different batches did you brew before you felt like, okay, we're ready to actually open a brewery and sell this to people?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'd say hundreds.
Really?
We had a good group of us. There were 4 of us that started the brewery.
At about 4 hours a batch. That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's more like 8 hours. Yeah, it's brew day is about 8 hours, especially when you first start, and we all first start. I mean, you're not starting with state of the art equipment. It's
Right.
just a single burner. It's like you're making crawfish, right? You got a single burner, you got a pot there, and you're going at it. Very simple kind of procedures there until you really ramp up, get a full kind of production, full all grain set up, and then when you bring more people on like we did, like I said, there's 4 of us enabled us really to do weekly brews, right? It's a lengthy process. Like I said, a day of brewing is about 8 hours.
So here's this
You gotta
week's
do-
beer.
Right. You got to
yeah.
do transfers. You got to, do temperature controls, tastings. I mean, it ends up being quite the chore if you're doing it solo.
You also end up being a little bit of electrician when you're modifying your refrigerator / freezer to regulate the
To be able to
temperature,
regulate
exact,
temperature
and
of
those
beer,
kind
yeah.
of things.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Yeah. Jack of all trades when it comes to it.
How many batches did it take before you went from saying, okay, that's pretty good, to where you could say, now that's great?
Yeah, I'd say about 5 years in.
5 years
from
in. Wow.
brewing.
See, that's a lot of dedication if you think about it. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, again, it was a hobby, right? That turned into a little bit more of a passion. So and obviously the byproduct is something that's enjoyed and welcomed by all, especially coming out of college. We started this back in 05 or so. That we were already looking for more quality product, and 15 plus years ago, the variety of craft beer in the market was much more limited as well. So we were actually, brewing things that we believed, and others kind of fed into our belief that, we were brewing some things that were a little bit better than what you could be finding at your usual retail
Ian
store.
knows a lot more about home brewing than I do. I've never actually tried it. You've done some batches that you wound up being reasonably proud of, didn't you? Yeah. So how difficult is it for somebody who's brewing in their garage to be able to find, quality hops and the things that you're going to need to actually do something good?
So my brewing experience is pretty limited in the fact that most of what I did was partial grain, which means you basically buy whatever recipe, or you create your own recipe, but you buy an extract.
Right, like a beer in a box type thing,
like a beer in a box.
So
which can turn out pretty good beer.
Right. So that's how we all started. That's how we started as well.
And it's a big, easy step. But when you're doing all grain, what he's talking about is you're buying the grains, you got to crush the grains, and you got to heat them up and separate the sugars, and you have that whole process, which is a much bigger process to go through. And as I don't have a 3-tier gravity-fed system, I don't generally do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Too,
Where am I going to put it?
Right.
So, so that's. But it gets bigger and bigger, and like home brew systems can get pretty expensive and pretty big, actually. But most of my brewing has been 5 to 10 gallon batches most of the time. So I can't imagine the step where you go from that to brewing at a commercial level. That's got to be crazy. And recipes don't translate. Oh, I just need twice as much of this to make it a double batch. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, being the good NASA nerds we went and did a lot of due diligence. So we sent Tom, our head brewer, off to do a number of internships at different breweries.
There's a whole montage of numbers and beakers in my head right now.
Yeah. Learn how to scale, figure out what works, learn more efficiency in product production, obviously coming up with the recipes themselves. On the homebrew scale, I would say you're pretty liberal to just add whatever the hell you want into it. You put spices. You
and your friends are the only ones that are going to try it.
Right. The worst it can do is suck.
Right. And you're going to just dry hop the hell out of something, and you're going to add a whole bunch. Well, I mean, scale that up, it just becomes price competitive, and you can't really do that. Right.
What is the thing, Ian, that you mentioned? Your friend had homebrewed some beer and he brought it in and said, "Well, if this is good."
No. So I was brewing for the first time with a buddy of mine on this. We had a brewing day, and actually it was Frank Krockenberger who said this to me.
Are you kidding me? I love him. He's awesome.
So I'm standing there and I'm looking at the beer and I'm scratching my head. I was like, "What if I brew a bad batch?" And he looks at me with the companionable look and the hand on his shoulder. He goes, "If you brew a good beer, we're gonna get drunk and enjoy it. If you brew a bad beer, we're going to get drunk."
Right. And eventually we'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Is there was there a time for you though when you would walk in with the latest one and people would give you that look like, "Oh boy, here comes Michael with another of his brews," or was everybody pretty receptive?
I would say most people were pretty receptive. And you have to imagine that, or remember that a lot of our friends at this time were also young college graduates that were looking for some cheap to free options.
I was going to say
more often than not.
These are people who drink Keystone Light if it's the only beer available.
Is this about the time you picked up the nickname the Tijuana Tickler?
Right, correct. Okay. Yeah. Where'd you read that at?
I just know things. Oh, okay. I smoke cigars.
He smokes cigars and he knows things. Yeah.
Well, we got to hear that story.
Yeah. Well, and I think we should. So you did hundreds of batches. How many did you feel like, okay, this is a keeper, we could brew this commercially? How many different styles did you have before you said, okay, let's offer this to the public?
Yeah, I'd say less than half were, things that we really held water. And a lot of that was because of experimentation, too. I mean, we did pickle beers, we did garlic beers, we did things with mint in them, we did anise, like all kinds of different things. We were just really exploring a lot of things. And you can do that on the homebrew scale and not get too penalized for it.
A lot easier.
And a lot of the vast majority of those, well, we're not going to be doing that one again. Or it turns out a little garlic goes a long way.
Oddly enough, isn't awesome.
Right. Well, you say that we did a portobello porter one time, which was with mushrooms, and that one turned out great, right? I
Weird,
mean, again,
okay.
we're not going to scale that up because no, we're not throwing mushrooms into our brew house at this point. You know,
That would be just a fun thing to
This
see.
place smells
right.
earthy.
But you know what? It was delicate. It was
It
delicious.
sounds
good.
good. Portobello Porter sounds good to me.
So I'd say about less than half, and then of those, we really, did a number of renditions, revisements to those to really perfect that. So by the time we had built our catalog up, I'd say about 50 beers or so that we felt confident enough that we could enter the market with, and really utilize those. Again, I don't think anybody needs to have 50 beers figured out before they can go open a brewery.
Right.
But that's because of how long we had done it before this. We had a good catalog to lean on.
Did you have one that you thought this will be our flagship? This will be the one? I always wonder if you can tell that ahead of time.
Yeah, so we ended up aligning ourselves along the lines of doing some wild sour beers. So the peculiarity with those is they're very hard to imitate from one batch to the next.
That's
why
the wild.
Right. It's why so many of them are the limited runs. You know, you
Correct.
get them this run, and the next one may or may not be the same. You know.
Correct. Yeah. So with that in mind, we really were trying to bring that whole concept to market here in the Houston area. 5 years ago, when we really start building out the business plan and looking at what the gaps in the market were, that was a pretty large area that we had a lot of confidence in and
sours.
that we had done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sours, wild beers, we're going to have one coming up as well here soon. But the other areas are honestly the beers that we're having today too, of saisons, grisettes, just Belgian-style beers that we had been brewing a bunch of that, again, just isn't prevalent in the market here in Houston. What we're sipping on right now is a single hop pale ale, which again isn't extremely prevalent, but it does end up highlighting a specific hop, and we have a whole series here called the Park Pale series that we do that with. This is Rocket Park, and it's the one that we've kind of brought to do more year-round production on. So this is 100% Citra hops.
It is citrusy and delicious.
I was going to say you're
Yeah.
right in my wheelhouse here, because Citra is. I just love the whole Citra hop vibe. There's very few pale ales, IPAs that I've had with Citra that I haven't liked on at least some level. And this one I think is delicious. It's actually
This is light, crisp, and
yeah,
delicious.
it's actually very light. It doesn't like sock you in the palate. It's just got a very very easy to drink citrusy vibe to it, and a great finish.
Yeah,
Great
appreciate
finish,
it. Yeah, it's about 5.5%. Right on the nose. Very light, very easy, very sessionable, if you will. Doesn't lay you down, but
This is the type of beer that I like to always have some of, and this will definitely be coming into the cruise beer fridge.
all right. And this will be available starting tomorrow at Specs all across town.
Awesome. Well, this is great. You know, I have to mention my beer fridge because I'm still just so overjoyed that I actually have
That
one.
you have one.
My wife is very easy to get along with, but one of the things we would do a little push pull on was how much room in the big refrigerator I could
Real
have.
estate.
Yeah, for the beer. So I finally broke down and bought a little beer fridge, which I've had for a few months now. And I'm just every time it's one of those things. Every time I go and open it up, I just get happy. It's just a feeling of happiness.
Very nice.
So yeah, I'll be adding some Rocket Park to the beer fridge. And one of the things we let people know, Michael, is that this program, Smoking and Toasting, does directly impact sales. And in this case, it absolutely will, because I'm going to buy some of this tomorrow at Specs.
Right. So just if I see you there, I'm solid. I'm
You're-
good.
Yeah, you know
That's
you know
a
it's
win.
working. You know it's working.
It's
No,
happening.
this is really good. Was this an early formula or something that came along a little bit later?
So really, the formula itself is really the pale ale itself without the single hop, right? So what we tried to work on was just a good base recipe that we could go infuse with any line of hops, just to really accentuate that style of hops and get people a good line. We've done as part of this series in the past, we've highlighted Nelson Salvin, Strata, a couple experimental hops that have come out just to, again, for you as the consumer coming in, who hear a lot about these hops and
Yeah.
see them blended into a lot of
Right,
different
you see
styles.
them listed on the cans, you read about them.
Right. So here we wanted to provide a very nice, clean backbone and really let the hops sing, so that during the course you keep on coming into our place, and every month or so, maybe a couple months, you find one of these, and it's a different hop variety, and you're saying, oh, great! I've always kind of wondered what Mosaic kind of tastes like on its own, or those elements.
So will this one with Citra, will this be available ongoing, or after Citra will you shift this to a different hop?
So both, actually. So we're going to continue with the Rocket Park. Rocket Park is one of those namesakes of Johnson Space Center down there, and our old home. So we have a strong tie to that. So this is the first one that we've given this moniker to, that we really kind of want to keep year round. However, we're going to continue exploring new hops as part of the Park Pale series in general.
I love it. Ian, let's make sure we give the camera a good shot of that for those who are watching, because if you're in the Houston
I
area,
can't see what I'm looking
this
at.
will be
here. I
it.
don't
Turn
have
it, turn it a little
a camera
closer.
thing facing
Turn it
to
about
me.
a quarter of the way. There you go.
He's flipping it around so I can see here. There we go.
The Rocket Park is definitely, that's definitely a keeper. No question. No question, that's a keeper.
All right, well, this next one I'm pouring you, I think you'll enjoy as well. If you like saisons and
We do actually.
little spice.
We
I'm
don't.
a fan.
We don't have them a lot on the show, but the ones we have had, we have been we've been big fans of. So this one I'm guessing we'll definitely get more of on the nose. I actually passed him that one, so if you want to pour some.
There we go.
Yeah, so this has definitely got that saison
The
nose
funk.
to it. Yeah, the funk, the dankness, if you will.
And this one is dry hopped with the Mosaic.
Okay.
And Mosaic's kind of the it's technically the daughter of Citra, or like Citra on steroids. I
Right.
think
This
some
is
people say.
interesting.
It's the daughter of, I think, Simcoe and Nugget is is a combination of. So
Ian, I feel like this has got more of a fruitiness to it than I was expecting.
Well, it's interesting because it's got that saison funk, that kind of overripe. It's got a little banana, almost banana peel in there, and then it finishes fruity
Yeah.
and dry, and doesn't leave any of the
Almost like a berry fruitiness.
it doesn't leave
to
the
it.
aftertaste that I generally suspect or expect from a saison.
Yeah, which for me
very
is
dry on
good.
this one.
Yeah, it's very
For
dry.
me is good because I like, we want the funk.
You got to have that funk.
Gotta have
In the
that funk.
saison, yes, you got to have that funk.
You got to have it. But sometimes I don't like if that is the
If it's
lingering,
too lingering, yeah.
finish that just stays with you. And so what I love about this is you get it on the palate, but it doesn't hang with you so long afterwards that that you go, yeah, I think next I'll have something different. This is one for me with saison. This is one I could keep drinking, for a while.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier. Like, nice ripeness to it, lingering, but nice kind of sharp, dry finish that doesn't kind of elongate that funk. So it really
it's almost
prepares you for the next sip.
It has almost a cider type finish to it,
Yeah, it really does. The way that it just is so crisp.
but without tasting like an apple necessarily. It's very crisp.
So let me ask you this question: Is there a way as a brewer to plan for that? To go, okay, we want a really crisp, dry finish, so we're going to brew like this in order to accomplish that.
Absolutely, yeah. So, just the yeast that you're using, the level of attenuation with the yeast, how long you're fermenting. It's all time and temperature with brewing, and then really trying to get it the residual sugars fermented more out to provide that dryness. Right.
I'm
that
one of
you're
those
looking
guys
for.
that I'm so bad about following a recipe. Like I always think,
we can't do that.
I'll
Not
try this
brewing.
and see how it works.
Yeah.
That approach doesn't
That's
doesn't
homebrew.
really.
You'd be a
That's
good
homebrew.
home brewer.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
you'd be an excellent home brewer.
All right, that's
Let's
worth
put some
noting.
time in here. See how it works
Yeah,
out.
right. Yeah, I like basil. Do you like basil? Let's put some in. Yeah.
And I guarantee you, whatever you're looking for, there's a beer out there
Oh,
that has
yeah.
it in it.
Well, I'm one of those guys that I've never understood why anyone would want a pickle beer, but some people love them.
Yeah, the who made one that's on the shelves right now? It's got the best made pickles in it.
Yes,
it's all over the shelves right now.
I keep seeing it everywhere. In fact, they're even expanding it. They've got more than one pickle beer in their pickle
I can't
line
remember,
now. So
that's not my thing. Here's a funny thing. My wife loves pickles.
yeah.
Does not like sour beer.
Well,
Oh, interesting.
See, like,
well,
how
you know, I
weird.
brought enough. You're going to take one home, and we're going to try it out
okay,
yet
well,
again,
good.
just
I
to
love
see,
sour beer.
just to see how it goes.
yeah,
You
all right.
can't actually make a beer too sour for me. That I
See,
found.
now
Yeah.
you see, you need to come back to the campus there, and then we'll treat you where we have our whole slew of funky, wild,
challenge
sour
accepted.
beers.
See,
for
Challenge
sure.
accepted.
See, I'm that way with beers that have a pepperiness to them, like a hot pepper. Like I love hot, spicy food, and washing it down with a beer. But I haven't really found a lot of beers that have hot pepper spice in them that I really enjoy.
It's hard. It's hard to stomach. I
Yeah.
think more than half a pint of
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
that's a jalapeno or
It's in
hatch
fact
chili.
my
or anything
least
like
favorite
that.
beer in the world is one of those. It's that Dos Equis Mexican Pale Ale. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrible.
Remember when the Don Jalapeno came out? The is that No Label or was that? Yeah, it was No
I think it
Label.
was No
Don
Label, yeah.
Jalapeno. Came out, and a friend of mine told me they loved it, and I tried it, and I went, no, but you know what I did with it? I cooked brats in it.
Right.
Oh, I bet
And
it was good. Yeah,
Damn, that
delicious.
was good.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I
Get
can
some chili.
enjoy.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome.
I can enjoy like a can of Mu
it's amazing for
Caliente,
cooking.
but by the end of the can, I don't want any more. You
Yeah.
know, it's like okay, I get it, but yeah, I'm moving on.
So we're so you were talking about spice beers or jalapeno type beers. So this is kind of the difference in production in homebrew. So in the homebrew level, we actually made a green hatch chili IPA, right? And we made a mango green hatch chili IPA, and you know,
Interesting.
and then again, it helped balance it out a little bit.
I
We
bet,
actually
yeah.
ended up winning some competitions.
Wow,
with
that's
that beer
very
for
cool.
different areas. I think even down in Yaga's when they had their beer competition down in Galveston, we submitted it and came away with some medals there. But I will tell you again, we have no inclination currently to bring that beer to market.
It
right?
would have to be a pretty limited market, I would say.
Spicy beer is very polarizing.
Yeah.
And see, here's another weird thing. My wife, she actually likes spicy drinks, like with heat spice kind of drinks, you know, like that. And I
Right.
Yeah.
generally I'll pass them up.
Yeah, I'm, and again, I like almost every style of beer.
And I like
you know?
spicy food. It's,
Oh yeah. Well,
You know, it's difficult
I
to
can
make
do
it
spice
too
in a
spicy
cocktail
for
though.
me.
That is different.
it's a
like
little
a
easier,
Paloma
very
with a little
easier for me
very
with a
cocktail
anything
cocktail.
tequila based. I think I can add a little spice to, and
Yeah,
and then
well, it's
end
got
up
that
doing
peppery
okay.
base to it
I don't know if
already.
you've I don't know if you've made the Gibbons, which is a recipe from Billy Gibbons.
You read about that.
Yeah,
you read that.
it's a tequila, Topo Chico, and a couple of slices of jalapeno dropped in. It's really quite refreshing
Yeah.
and delicious, and just that little bit of kick.
I do
Also,
love fresh jalapeno.
Topo Chico keeps on finding their way into to new beverages. They're,
Yes.
they're doing a good job of
Yeah.
promoting Topo Chico. Does a good job promoting Topo Chico.
They really do. All right, tell you what, we're going to take a break. This is a very good. I think it's one of my favorite saisons I've had in at least a very
Appreciate
long
it.
time.
I think it's one of the few around
really
here in
good.
the Houston area. That's obviously an area that we're marketing heavily in
Yeah.
and bringing kind of new
Ian,
varieties
let's
to
make
Houston.
sure
on.
everybody sees that can too. So.
Yeah, and our cans are very distinct. You'll be able to find them in the store. They're kind of brightly colored. Our big kind of slash there in the middle that
Yep.
represents our forward-looking exploration.
Yeah, you've
focus.
definitely got a sort of a theme. The color's different. You've definitely got a theme to the design of the cans, which makes it easy to find, which I think is awesome. So, all right, more beer to taste and more some tequila to taste as well.
Ooh.
Plus, drinking news is on the way, and we'll tell you about those. What was it? I just remembered. Oh yeah, it's 9 new bourbons to try right now. We'll be back at Smoking and Toasting.
When do you get that reverb thing up working again?
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is the program all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by mycigarshirts.com. New designs available now, and they look really good. My favorite of the new designs, there's a great sweatshirt, and I think there's a T-shirt of it available as well. It says, I just want to smoke cigars and pet my dog. Perfect. I love it.
By the way, that shirt you're wearing right now is just
Yes.
a party.
It is. I love this shirt.
Like-
this is
like
my
it's
wife got
covered
this
with-
for me. She came home and said, I didn't
martini
know if you would like this.
glasses
I was like, how could you not know I would like this?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
My enthusiasm was increased by at least 2.
Yes,
when I came
absolutely.
in and saw
That
the
is
shirt.
absolutely good to know.
Is a +2 shirt of enthusiasm. He just totally geeked out.
So I just wanted to mention that I thought that I saw a commercial this week. We were talking commercials earlier that I thought was really brilliant. It was a commercial for Miller light beer from Miller. And as most people who listen to the show regularly know, we're not always that kind to the macro brews. But I thought they hit on a brilliant marketing idea. And the whole focus of the ad was it's 1 calorie more than Michelob Ultra. And I thought that's brilliant. Because if I had to choose between a Miller Lite and a Michelob Ultra, there's no I mean, that's an easy one. You go for the Miller Lite. There's at least some flavor there.
Got to pay that
Michelob's
penance.
pretty pale when it comes to the flavor. Yeah.
So here's what I'm trying to figure out, because I saw another commercial this week for Michelob Ultra hard seltzer. And I thought, why did they need that? They already have
They got one.
a fizzy water that's kind of
with
sort
just
of
a hint of barley.
ish. So yeah.
But on this one, they add lime.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go.
It's a
So,
fruited
it's yeah.
ultra.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't understand why all these macro brews are marketing hard seltzer with their own name. Bud Light hard seltzer, while I realize it's fruit flavored and all, that just
Look,
sounds disgusting.
look.
Who wants a beer
They
flavored
should. I
hard
concur
seltzer?
on this. And you know who did this well? Boston Beer Company.
Yes, they didn't name it Sam Adams
Truly
hard
is
seltzer.
from Boston Beer
Right,
Company.
right.
Technically a craft brewery,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, and those guys, by the way, are were one of the first of the craft breweries to actually, not only
Leading the
release
charge.
a line of hard seltzer, but it's actually kind of kept them
Look,
afloat for the
so
last couple of years because it sells very well.
Let's talk macro brew for just a second.
All right,
First
but
off,
only a second.
it's been okay. I'm done. First off, it's been. How long has it been since they've even tried to remember the whole great taste, less filling thing? That's the last I can remember them even talking about the flavor of their beer in
yeah.
any of their ads.
That's right.
Like, they literally don't even sell the beer anymore. They sell the Vortex bottle.
Right.
They sell the cold activated can.
Right.
They sell what was the 12-pack that you could open and just put ice in?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they don't even sell beer anymore.
Oh,
They
I
sell
know.
packaging, and that's it.
And
so who cares what they put their
Light's,
name on?
Miller Lite's last advertising campaign that I remember, there may have been one that I missed.
The Bully campaign, the Dilly Dilly one?
Oh no, that was the Bud Light.
yeah,
That's like
they're all the same to me,
worst
yeah.
beer campaign ever.
Yeah.
But Miller Lite's last campaign that I remember was, "Hey, look, everybody, we're going back to our classic can design."
Yeah, they're selling the can. That's it.
Really? I'm going to buy your beer because you changed back to your old design on the can?
Right, we want short necks again.
Yeah.
And then they started picking on each other about
Oh,
corn
yeah.
versus
Oh,
rice.
corn versus
which are
rice,
still
yes,
just an
absolutely.
adjunct that no real craft
Well,
brewery uses.
They did put rice on the ingredients, by the way.
Yes, they did.
They
did.
got
But you know what they left out?
Finally put it in there.
Oh, man.
You know what they left out when Budweiser started putting on their packaging that their beer was made with water, malt, and barley and hops? They left out the industrial strength floor cleaner that's included in the beer.
You
Well.
can taste it.
You can taste it. You absolutely can. All right. Well, welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. We are thrilled to have Michael Duckworth in. Michael is a beer guy. He's with True Anomaly Brewing, and these guys are all former. You're all former NASA employees. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's so.
He
that's
still
so
hasn't told
cool.
us the story of the Tijuana Tickler.
No, we're gonna have to get to that before the show is over. Maybe a bonus segment. I don't know.
Right. That's on Patron or Patreon. What is it?
That's good.
You notice he makes a face every time I say that.
You'll be on the Smoking and Toasting OnlyFans page.
There
so.
you go. I can't wait. Might be the only submission.
Yeah, well, it's all good. Tell us a little bit about your brewery as it's situated. People, things keep changing in terms of what you can and can't do during the pandemic. Are you guys open now for people to be able to come and have beers? And do you have food trucks? Do you serve any food? How is it situated at True Anomaly?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we've had to adapt with the times, like many others. So we are currently open. We were able to reopen a few weeks ago by partnering with some food vendors. Our number one preferred partner right now is actually Vinny's, right across the street.
Vinny's?
Yeah, so Vinny's
Very nice.
Pizza, Top 10 Pizza in Houston, and what goes
I haven't
better
had Vinny's Pizza. Have you had that?
I
beer, but
have. It's
pizza.
been a while ago, and as I recall, it's quite good.
Yeah.
It is. It is quite good, and a lot of content in there. They really stuff those pizzas with as much as you want, and they are delicious. So they're right across the street, and
So you were
it
able
was
to
just
collaborate
pretty
with them.
natural,
Yeah.
collaboration to bring them in. So now, if you come to the brewery, we've got their menus on there. You can order direct from there. They'll run it across the street, bring it to you direct. No destination charges or anything weird like that, which is really nice. And that has enabled us to reopen. So we had to reclassify as a restaurant, which many other breweries have had to do. We were prior to that, we were considered a bar under the eyes of Texas, if you will, which are still currently closed, at least in Harris County, if you've been following the news on that. So that has been a big boon for us, at least in the past month or so. Outside of that, we've had to pivot a little bit. Obviously, we had about 6 months of disruption to the business, where only being a year and a half old, that's a fair amount of time of disruption
Right.
that we had. But nonetheless, we found new markets, new channels of distribution, both through your traditional kind of restaurants, bars, pseudo bars, whatever, that can carry our product on draft, in addition to the cans that we are having in front of us today. That, like I said, we've partnered with Specs to get those all across the greater Houston area. You can find us in Katy, Cypress Spring, Porter, down in Clear Lake, obviously, as well. And then, many locations within the loop, too. So
I was. We shared a story, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about Austin Beer Works in Austin getting particularly creative. They will actually sell you like a little plate of chips and give you a beer for free.
Right.
So there people had to come up with creative ways to get around.
Well, when I was in Galveston, the Galveston Island Brewery, every beer comes with a pretzel. Big pretzel.
And I mean, people are being pretty creative, pretty crafty, if you will, on reinventing their space, and quite honestly, I don't want to say gaming, but for all intents and purposes, getting around the provisions of that TABC has set out, and that's all kosher, that's legal, I mean that's fine, but
spend
obviously
less
we're in
money
this new
on furniture.
environment.
Now you guys were just getting started, really, when the pandemic hit and things began to close down.
Yeah, we were right about a year in. We were about to have our 1 year anniversary right before that. And we were really focused as a taproom brewery, where we're trying to, as I stated earlier, bring new styles to market. Pretty much every week have a new style available in the tap room. So if you're coming in every few weeks, there's a few new beers on the board, right? And probably a few others have dropped off. So it's giving you that incentive, that motivation to come in,
come back and try what's new.
Check out what's new, right? And we had great success with that. We were doing really well.
That's become a big thing in craft beer because people always are looking to try something new. It's not like our dads and granddads who kind of established their favorite brand and drank it for the rest of their life. We often have not as much brand loyalty as we should. We're always wanting to try what's new or what we read about or what we saw on Untapped or whatever. So it's a different vibe, and I think that a lot of, at least before the pandemic, a lot of smaller breweries were really using that to their advantage. Brewing up maybe smaller batches than a bigger brewery would have to do.
Because people come by, hey, what's on tap this week? Or
Right,
what's on
exactly.
tap now?
Very
Those-
interesting. And not any different than what we started the show off with, right? The cigars and talking about the different spirits and wanting to try that variety. And for a long time, the macro beer, the company is the brand, right? It's just, it's Budweiser.
It's Budweiser.
Like, what kind of Budweiser is that?
The whole industry was homogenized down to
absolutely.
like this brand and that brand.
And we've talked about
came in and said, no, there's hundreds of different styles here. We don't make one thing.
There's actually flavor.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about that
variants.
We've talked about that show that I watched that was on Amazon Prime called Beer King, and it's this whole show about these Anheuser-Busch brewers all competing with each other within the company from the different brewery locations around the world to see which one can make the Budweiseriest Budweiser of all. That's the competition. It's not who can make a better beer. It's not who can come up with something new and exciting that could be the next big innovation for the company. It's about who can make the beer that is most consistently tasting like a Budweiser. And they have a whole panel of people that judges these things, and the guys compete. It's a fascinating watch, but you'll also come away from it really disappointed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But in any case, I love that the craft brewing industry has brought this new kind of experimentation vibe to the whole thing. And by the way, this is delicious.
Oh, so we're
Oh
tasting
my
on the
God.
Go Flight right now. It's our
Go Flight.
double dry hop New England IPA.
You
It's
need to show that to the
pretty
camera.
traditional on the hop profile there with the Galaxy Mosaic, etc.
Yep.
You'll find that in
Three
a lot
of my faves.
yeah, you'll find them in a lot of different New Englands. For us in particular, we've been working on this recipe for a little bit, and we're very proud of it at this point.
This is an outstanding IPA.
It really
you.
is. Now,
Thank you.
one of the things, Michael, about the two of us, between the two of us, I'm much more the hophead than Ian. I like almost everything IPA. Ian is much pickier about his IPAs and doesn't like the ones that finish with that sort of resiny pine cone vibe. He always prefers a much more balanced. So it's one thing for me to like your IPA, but for him to like your IPA is a
balance
big compliment.
is so important to me, and this is incredibly balanced. And I can think of about 3 other IPAs that are in this level of that, and that would be probably Two Hearted Ale. And I include that one, and I'm not including Stone and all those other ones because those are so big.
Right.
But Two Hearted Ale is a good drinkable IPA, and it's very balanced. This is a little more. This is a brighter
a
overall,
little citrusy, a little more citrusy. Yep.
citrusy flavor than that. There was a brewery in Keller, Texas, called Shannon Brewery that had an IPA that was absolutely outstanding, very much like this. I believe I brought a beer on the show in the early
I
days.
think you did, yes.
But it's very hard to find an IPA that's this easy to drink, this balanced, and doesn't leave you with that pine cone disgusting bitterness.
Real stringent bitterness.
This
Yes.
feels to me like it's in the same orbit with Lone Pint Yellow Rose, which is one of my all-time favorite IPAs.
Lone Pint's a little...
It's more citrusy than Lone Pint. Than Yellow
It is,
Rose.
but the Lone Pint's a little bigger overall than this too. This is more delicate, but
Right.
with
Would
balance.
Would it surprise you to know this is 7.6%?
That would very much surprise me.
So I mean, I think again, we've you were asking earlier, what do you do with the beer? How can you really like work it as far as the brew goes? And this is one that we've played around with the boil on, played around with the yeast on, played around with different aspects on it to get a lot of the elements that you're talking about. Find that balance, bring up the gravity a little bit at the end, so it doesn't finish nearly as dry. Helps balance with the sweetness without taking those shortcuts that you might see other people do, adding lactose or those kinds of things. We don't do that with any of our beers, or really with any of these anyway that we're looking at. So unless we're intentionally making a milk stout or something.
Right.
So let me ask you this question. Let's say this one like totally takes off for you, and you have to scale up the production to meet the demand. When you do that, is it all math? In other words, do you just increase everything by a certain percent to make a larger batch and it comes out the same? Or are there adjustments that you have to make in order to get the same kind of balance that you have in this once you're changing the amount that you're brewing?
Yeah, so on our current brew system, it's going to be pretty routine, whether you're brewing it 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns over the course of a day to fill up that fermenter, right? For the scaling for us is really about the production capacity and how many fermentation tanks we have. Again, that's sticking to what we have as a 10-barrel vessel system. So certainly when we went to, or eventually when we look at getting a 20, 30-barrel vessel system, you're going to have to tweak those recipes. And we might actually learn that in doing more routinely and more vigorously, we might have to look at that. The biggest advantage, obviously, there is when you are able to really lean into something and make it your flagship, if you will, and then get on contract for larger hop quantities. you end up getting better selection of hops, right? Better
Right,
selection of grain, and that can actually end
Because
up
you're a more important consumer of the hops.
Right. And now you can come in, and that's that's when you're becoming kind of more of a big fish, and then you can really go in there and start hand selecting crop yields or years or whatever. So we're not quite at that point yet. We're eager to look at doing that in the future, and then we will have to reevaluate year to year. And one of the things that I always stress that I think most people don't always think about is that at the end of the day, beer is a food product.
Right.
And like any other food product, it has a certain shelf life.
And with IPAs, the fresher the better.
Right. The year to year, though, the crop yield is different. The varieties that come out, although they have the same moniker and name to them, they might, have different qualities to them. Just like in a vineyard or spirit or anything else.
Right. Sure.
It's a little
Absolutely.
windier. There's all kinds of things that can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to, again, especially as a craft brewery, coming out with new styles, different things, understanding a little bit too that we're not this big macro thing that's going to water down our beer to have this exact level of taste and consistency. You might experience a little bit of variance, and that's okay, right?
Yeah,
And just like when you go to grab a steak, I mean, it's not going to be exactly like the last steak you had, right? It's going to be pretty good. You're going to give it over a 5, hopefully, on what you're looking for.
I'll tell you, if
uh,
I have anything to do with it, you're going to have to start brewing this on a larger scale, because that is absolutely delicious.
All right, I got you 2 at least.
Yeah,
two of the 3 for sure. You're coming and picking up this weekend.
But again, you're in my sweet spot here, because the pale ales and the IPAs are what I enjoy the most, and then I enjoy experimenting and sampling with the other styles. But for a New England IPA, when I see the phrase New England IPA on a can or a bottle, I'm generally expecting a little more hop bitter than I'm getting in this one. This one is so well balanced that what you get is the citrus of the hops and not that sort of resin of the hops. Now, sometimes I want that. I know Ian doesn't like those kind of beers.
I will tell you
but this to me is an everyday. Like I can drink this
smells amazing too.
Drink it every day.
Heavy on the tropical notes. Big citrus, grapefruit.
Wonderful.
You're going to get a lot.
Get
of
a
that
little bit,
in there.
even a mango vibe in there.
Right.
It's really fantastic.
And Cruz, we do have a more West Coast IPA, and explicitly stated West Coast IPA.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
you'll know coming in, Ian. You're like, I don't know. Give me a sample before I get into this.
But you're absolutely right. But this to me is one of the more balanced New England IPAs I've had in a long time.
I don't know that I like New England versus West Coast IPAs one or the other. I just think they have to be balanced and
Well, it's not a
For the
war. It's not
longest-
rap. It's not a war.
for the longest time. Well, for the longest time it was. West Coast IPAs were like how much hops can we
Right.
brutalize you with? Like
That's
it was
really true in some
absolutely
cases, yeah.
ridiculous for a long time. Like,
100 IBU plus beers that were just
And then the New
inundating your
England thing-
palate.
we
kinda
just named
gave-
our beer IBU.
The New England thing kind of gave way to
There we go.
all
Write
of
that one down.
the hazy stuff, becoming such a big trend. And I don't know. I've had a lot of these. That's one of the styles I drink the most often, and that's fantastic.
No, I would recommend this IPA to anyone who likes the idea of IPA but gets beat up by the hops a lot. This is outstanding. This is well balanced.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Immediately went to the top of like my favorites that I know of now.
Awesome. I love it. And,
Right now.
And those lists are always changing and evolving, but yeah. Smoking and Toasting will definitely be influencing sales. I
Top
can tell you that.
IPA you have to have in Houston right now. I like it.
And on that note, we'll be right back with more on Smoking and Toasting. Tequila time in our next segment as we taste the Tequila Mico, Anejo Tequila. We'll be right back.
I appreciate it.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, where we are having some great beers today. Holy cow. Michael Duckworth from True Anomaly is with us. We are doing show number 207 of Smoking and Toasting, and we are brought to you by mycigarshirts.com. It really is a cool site with lots of great new shirts. You do have to check it out. If you were thinking about holiday gift giving for persons like Ian or myself, there's tons of stuff on there we would love. And all the shirts start, by the way, under all the T-shirts at least start under $20, so it's a pretty cool thing. Liquor.com is one of my favorite websites to visit, and I really try
There's
hard.
just so much stuff on that website.
There is. And I really try hard not to give out my email to too many sites because then, like, if you email me something important, I won't get it because I've got all these other promotional emails.
I have a trash email that I give out to the sites that are like,
Well, liquor.com's
man.
one that I really look forward to seeing their emails come in because they always have such interesting articles. And so when one came along that said 9 new bourbons to try right now, I had to look at it, and they're all limited releases. So these are ones I'll share these with you. And if you can find these and you're a bourbon fan, you may want to try them because they are limited and you may not see them around for very long,
So,
if
Cruz,
at all.
are we actually going to be able to find these? Because one of my pet peeves is when we get these lists, they always highlight something that I've got
can't
zero
possibly
chance.
get.
And you know what?
of
I
actually
can't tell you
trying.
that. Now, see, this is one of the things we always tease our good friend Chris Hart about with his show because he does the Whiskey Neat show. And he'll do entire shows where he's talking about how great whiskey, different whiskeys are, and you can't buy a single freaking one of them. Yeah,
never.
and so we give him a hard time about that. He even has a tendency when he comes on our show to bring something rare and unusual that you can't find anyway. So
Which is nice for you.
we enjoy drinking it, but right. So I don't know, but what I do know is there's some very recognizable brand names here. So what you might be able to do, and what I like to do with these things is I'll write down ones that seem interesting to me, and then I'll go into Specs or Total Wine or wherever, and I'll start saying, hey, do you have this? Can you get it? I'm making a request. I'll buy it if you get it. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I found a few things and some things you don't. So we'll see how we go with 9 new bourbons that, according to liquor.com, you might want to try right now. Yeah. Number 9 is Sweetens Cove, Tennessee. Now this was a new one to me. Do you know Sweetens Cove at all, Ian?
Don't know anything about it.
It's the first batch of a solo project from master blender Marianne Eves, who was formerly the head distiller at Brown-Forman and Castle and Key in their Kentucky houses. It's backed by Andy Roddick and Peyton Manning. So it's got the sports, celebrity tie into it.
Okay.
But fortunately, neither one of them are mentioned or pictured on the bottle. So to me, that's a little bit cooler. You know what I'm saying?
No pop. Hold on. Let me try it again.
That wasn't loud, but it. No,
Nah. Oh well.
I still like the squeaky squeak
The
though.
squeaks were good though.
That was good. So I appreciate when when somebody's not so identified with just because a celebrity invests in a product doesn't mean it's not like what Conor McGregor's whiskey. You know what I mean? Just because they invest in it doesn't mean the product's not going to be good. Yeah. I've seen those commercials, by the
you
way.
hear
That's
that one?
very interesting.
That was
Yeah.
better.
I did. That
much
was better. How did you do that? You just
There you go.
you got that cork.
Had to
a
be
little
more
damp.
aggressive
With some
with it.
thrust.
All right. Remus Repeal Reserve Series 4 is number 8 on the list. Named for bootlegger George Remus and promoted to commemorate Repeal Day. It's the 4th annual release in the series. It's a 12-year-old high rye bottling, and it comes from the distillery. So this is not one that I have seen before, but it debuted in September of this month to coincide with National Bourbon Month, and they say it will reach full distribution by Repeal Day, December 5th. So that means you should be able to find this one. It is called
Keep an eye out for that one.
Remus Repeal, Remus being named after the legendary bootlegger. The next one, at number 7 on the list, weighs in at only $23 for the price. So immediately I'm interested. When something makes a list like this on liquor.com or another respectable site, and the retail price is under $30, I always get really interested. And this one is Old Tub.
Old Tub.
Old Tub. Are you familiar with Old Tub?
I've never tried it.
Well, it's from Beam Suntory. This is a limited edition bottled in bond Old Tub. And before Prohibition, Jim Beam was named Old Tub. And the label's inspired by the brand's late 1800s original look and feel. What's in the bottle is designed, they say, to harken back to its early rustic character. It's unfiltered and bottled at 100 proof. Larceny Barrel Proof is number 6 on the list.
I've had
coming
that.
in at $50. I've had Larceny, but have I had Barrel Proof? I don't know if I've had Barrel Proof.
That is a good question. Larceny's good though. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's a $50 retail price. Hersch's The Horizon Straight from Hersch. The inaugural expression of this bourbon debuted this summer, and additional expressions are following in 2021. It's got a nice blue label on the front. Looks very, I don't know, looks very interesting. Hersch is the name, Hirsch.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The
I haven't-
Horizon.
I don't
straight.
know about the Horizon one, but I've seen the whiskey bottles before.
At number 4, Heaven Hill, 7-year bottled in bond at only $40. And that's a pretty good price for a bottled in bond. First of all, Heaven Hill is fantastic. I mean, this is a pretty quality product. Previously, they say Heaven Hill had a 6-year-old bottled in bond, available only in Kentucky.
That was last year.
Yeah, it was retired and replaced at the end of 2019, actually, with this more widely available and more expensive 7-year-old bottle and bond. They say add water to this 100 proofer to release delicious notes of vanilla, brown sugar, and spice. I will be looking for that one.
Cruz, real quick, what is bottled in bond?
So Ian explains this better than I do. It has
So the Bottled and Bond Act of, I can't remember what year, 18 something or another.
One of them 18
I
years.
should know that.
It's all right.
I don't know, 19th century things. Anyway, the Bottled and Bond Act was as an attempt to curtail counterfeit and basically bad whiskey practices. So when it's bottled in bond, it has to be made from the same distillery with ingredients from the same season and all bottled within the same season, and then they have bonded warehouses.
And it has to sit in one of those
And it has to
bonded
sit in one of
warehouses,
those
right?
warehouses for I can't. Is it a minimum of 3 years?
I think it's a minimum of 3 years, and there are regulations to how these they actually have inspectors that come in and inspect these
Yes.
bonded warehouses to make sure that they're following
It's a more
guidelines.
well inspected
Right.
process and
Yeah,
procedure.
and everything comes from the same year, same
Yes.
batch, same
season,
harvest.
Same harvest, all that. So basically, it was a way, when it was created, it was a way to curtail. If you saw the bottled in bond, then you knew you were actually getting the real deal product versus, like Joe down the road calling his stuff Jack Daniels and
Right.
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 with
Joe's-
the backwards
yeah.
J.
Right. Yeah.
Have you seen some of those? You can find these on the internet. Some of the brand fakes that they have in other countries. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Well, they'll have McDonald's, but it'll have an extra
Arch.
part in an extra arch, and they call it McDonald's or something. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Bullet Blenders Batch 001 comes in at number 3. Bullet Bourbon overall very high quality product. This is a $50 bottle, and it's Blenders Batch 001. So yeah, maybe what the moral of this can be is be on the lookout for these. If you see them, you may not be able to find all these, but you may find, they have to land on some store shelves somewhere, right? Even if they're limited. So at number 2, it's Bradshaw. This one was a complete new one to me. It's a $40 bottle of Bradshaw.
Does Terry Bradshaw have his name on a whiskey?
Unfortunately, yes. It's a 2-year-old bourbon from former NFL quarterback Terry
Wow,
Bradshaw
good
has
call.
arrived. Now, I'm gonna just say this. I was watching.
I love me some Terry Bradshaw.
Well,
Let me
I
put
was
that
watching the Fox Sports pregame show last Sunday on television. I think Terry's been dipping into the still. The man is losing it. I don't know what's going on upstairs with him, but he's becoming. You remember who was the legendary
out. Madden.
Yeah. He's becoming almost
I'm telling you,
Madden-like.
if you want to win this game, you got to get the ball,
Yeah,
then you got to
yeah,
move the ball.
yeah,
and you got to
yeah,
get it down to the
yeah.
goal. That's how
Score
you
the
win the
points.
game.
I actually heard John Madden say one time, the goal of the offense is to score points because the team that scores the most points, that's the team that's going to win the game.
Oh, I love the overly obvious.
Actually heard him say that.
Maddenisms.
Yeah, actually heard him say that.
Perfect.
Great.
At
yeah.
number 1 on this list, coming in at $120 a bottle, it's Blanton's Gold. Now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, good luck finding that
I'm
one.
guessing in response
had
to your
that.
question. No, we haven't had the gold,
Haven't we? I'm pretty sure that.
Where did we have it?
At Man Cave, the first time we were there.
Mr. Alan Denny, if you're on, verify that because you were there with us that
He
day.
was there, and
Yeah.
Chris Hart showed up, and he had.
I think you
Blanton's
may
that
be
we-
right.
that you couldn't get.
Right, and that was his whole thing. Well, because it was Chris Hart, that was his whole thing. You can't get this anywhere. Well, okay, so let me read you what it said. Previously, Blanton's Gold was only available outside of the
In
U.S.
Europe is where he
Thank
said
you,
it
Chris
came
Hart.
from, yeah.
But starting this summer, the single-barrel version of Blanton's is going to be available stateside, albeit in very limited quantities.
Hold on.
You can't get regular
I
Blanton's.
First off, I want to say any Blanton's is going to be available.
If
It's a
this
funny
is gonna-
statement.
If this is going to be more difficult to find than regular Blanton's,
I
good
give up
luck.
already.
It's the same basic high rye recipe as the standard version, bottled at 51.5% versus the usual 46.5%, and packaged in the circular bottle with the familiar horse and jockey on top. It's a beautiful bottle.
I
and
remember us.
I
I
would
think
love
we
to get
finished the
some,
bottle because he brought in a bottle that just had a little bit left in it, and we finished
You're
the bottle.
right.
It was
I remember it
outstanding,
now,
yeah.
and that was a while ago, but I do remember going, whoa. I hope this doesn't ruin regular Blanton's for me because I get so excited if I can find that,
Right.
And I have found it a few places. I mean, for a while you could find it if you went to really out of the way, offbeat liquor stores.
Right now, you
but
can't
then
find it
everybody
all.
else, everybody else figured out that plan. And
10
and,
years ago, you could just walk
You
up
could
and
just
get
buy
it on
it
a
anywhere.
shelf.
Yeah, amazing. So let's talk tequila. Have you had a chance to sample this?
I'm about to go in for my second sample in a moment.
Oh, yeah. So this is the first thing that I get on this is it's got more caramel on the nose than I think I've ever had in a tequila before. Now, some of my very favorites, like the Reserva de la Familia, have definitely got a caramel note. But this one really, like you can really smell
Put that up
it.
to your face and breathe in gently and
Yeah.
think butter too.
Oh,
like
yes.
it's so buttery.
Yeah, it's almost like if you took caramel and put a dab of it in a bowl, surrounded it with butter, heated it up in the microwave, and then just stirred it gently. That's kind of
it's
the
like
a little
vibe that you
croissant
would get.
And
Yes.
then you have that agave and the pepper that comes through. As soon as you take a sip, this is sweet tequila, like deliciously sweet tequila.
Sweet in a very good way.
Yeah, it's not like sweet nectar to ease the pain. That's a little different, but this is sweet and delicious.
And there is
The pepper's still there.
there's pepper on the finish, but there's almost no tequila hug here.
no, there's very little heat.
Really doesn't
whatsoever
come
that
back with a
happens.
lot of heat to you. So
Yeah.
that
I love how
that,
it lingers on the tip of the tongue too. There's
yes.
that agave flavor just sits right there on the end of the tongue.
This is a very good sipping tequila.
Yeah,
To
agreed.
me, it's always interesting to see because when you talk bourbon and you talk different whiskeys, there's so much variation based on what kind of a barrel and cask they mature it in and what's been in that cask before, if anything. With tequila, there's not as much variation. So I'm always surprised when I come across something that tastes as different from every other tequila as this tastes to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
The aging process doesn't have as much of an influence in tequila as it does in some of the other spirits, because you can get to añejo or even extra añejo in a fraction of the time it takes to just get to what you might consider a really decent age for a whiskey or a bourbon.
Right, fraction.
So it's always interesting to me to see how they come up with these different flavor profiles, and this is good. As you can tell, Ian, when I removed the cellophane to make it easier for you here,
Well, you also removed some of the liquid from the top of the
Yes.
neck of the bottle so it wouldn't spill.
maybe a little more than I normally do.
No,
because-
this is good. The bottle has almost no information on it.
Yeah,
it has
it's really
100% de agave, but it doesn't have the identification numbers that you usually see on there. It has a lot number,
Well, I'm a guy that
40%.
loves sipping tequila. It's really still is my favorite spirit, but I'm pretty picky about the ones that I really like. You've gotten good at that over the course of
Yeah.
the show. And this one's definitely getting added to my favorite.
We're going in for seconds.
So this one, if I got this one gets added to a very rare. I've still got a little bit. You can pour more. I've got a very rare air kind of top three. For me, it's the Reserva de la Familia, the Skelly.
It's amazing.
And now this comes in at
The
number 3.
Skelly
for
is
me.
pretty amazing too.
And this
you know what?
is
This
very different
has-
from the Skelly, though.
This has, but the drinkability of the Skelly, even beyond the flavor of the Skelly, which is really nice, but just how smooth and easy it goes down. This has that element as well. This is way easy to drink, as evidenced by my second glass of it.
Fantastically good.
Yeah, we're gonna have to pick one of these up for the weekend.
Highly
It'll
recommend.
be gone by Monday.
What was the price of the?
Once again, smoking and toasting, directly influencing sales.
What was the price?
It's about a $40 bottle of tequila.
That's
we'll
yeah,
take
that's
that.
outstanding.
Yeah, it's about a $40 bottle of tequila. And
Tequila Mico.
for me, yes, tequila Mico, and it's really the only one you'll find on the shelf in a bottle that shape. And I think they changed the shape of the bottle. I think it was a more traditional bottle shape before, and now they've changed it to this. If the limited amount of research I was able to do on it is meaningful for anything, but anyway, yeah, highly recommended. And I'll tell you something: anytime you go up above about $32, $33 in a tequila, you want something that will deliver that little bit of extra, and this one does.
Yeah.
This one really, really does. So cheers,
It's a
gentlemen.
good day for drinks.
It's a
Salud.
good day. It's a good day for drinks. All right,
Salud.
we're gonna in our final segment. We will come back. We will bring you this episode of Smoking and Toastin's Drinking News. Ian will play the ukulele, and we'll try one more beer. Now, this is the sour. What is the name of the sour that we're going to try in the last?
Barrel, named after Beryl Markham, which was not only the first person, but the first woman to fly the Atlantic.
Very nice.
Solo.
By the way, I noticed that one of your beers was Sally. Is that named after Sally Ride?
You got it.
Had a feeling. All right, we'll be back with a really interesting sounding sour and some drinking news next at Smoking and Toasting.
Some serenade.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Show number 207 is here, and we are brought to you by the very fine website called mycigarshirts.com. It's kind of hard to say, actually. mycigarshirts.com. I actually one time mispronounced it in a not too flattering way. But anyway, the site is great. There are a lot of different designs there now for cigar lovers and those who love them. And don't forget the holidays are coming, so you can get a gift for anyone on your list, like Ian or myself, that loves a good cigar. So it's. Did you going to say something? You got that look like you were going to say something.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. All right. So we want to thank Michael Duckworth for coming in. Michael's with True Anomaly Brewing. And this, I have to tell you, this to me is like a really, really good show. I was thinking about, when we're done with the show and I'm driving home, about what shows I look back on and think that was a really great show. Are they the ones where Ian was particularly insightful in his cigar review? Well, maybe. Are they the ones where we had, great comments on the live feed from people as we were on the show? Yeah, maybe. But for me, the shows that really make it to the top of my list is when everything we tasted was amazing. And
Yeah,
today's
that's
shaping
good.
up to be one of those days. Some really good beers, a great tequila, and now in our final segment,
yes.
we'll be trying this fruited sour. So while you open that and do the pour, let me bring
you
in...
got one more chance to blow it. Man.
Yeah,
All right. We'll do our best.
no pressure. We have just a moment to bring you a segment of the program that's come to be revered by literally tens of people.
Tens and tens of people.
Oh, is this the item I was going to guess earlier?
It's
Is this
drinking
the, What's wrong in the industry?
Oh no, but we'll get to that too. I promise you.
Drinking news, and now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, now it's time for drinking news. So grab a cup while we gather round, saddle up while we drink 'em down. I've got a story and I swear it's true. So now it's time for drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Do we need another verse? You're taking a sip over there.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to go on or.
A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet.
It's my favorite verse.
When I asked him about his absent arm, he said, well, I had to take my gator to the vet. Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Thank you, Ian. I like the segment so much better now that we have you
Cheers, y'all.
It's a great
on
intro.
the ukulele. And that is my favorite verse, so I always wait to see if you're going to do the second verse or not. Once again, a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, Drinking News is a segment on the program that may or may not be about drinking, but is always probably best enjoyed if you are drinking. And so, perfect show for that today because we've had so many great things to drink, and I'm already excited to tell you about this first little sip that I took. How much drinking have I been doing?
Enough.
This smells. This has a little bit of a breakfast cereal kind of smell to it.
Ooh, see, I love a good bowl of Captain Crunch with crunch berries.
Like just a little bit. Like you can kind of smell the fruity and the sour, but the breakfast cereal's kind of right underneath that.
Well, a drinking news story is always best to partake in while you're drinking, while you're partaking. And it doesn't start with a Florida man, as so many good drinking news stories do, but it does start an Ohio man. An Ohio man was arrested for felony drunk driving after allegedly crashing into a van in the Little Caesars Pizza drive-thru in Massillon, Ohio. According to jail records, and Adam, you can now post the drinking news photo, Donald Norman Duck, a 51-year-old from Taggart Street in Massillon, smelled of alcohol and had red and glassy eyes when officers responded to the restaurant around 5:35 p.m. that day. Jail records show that Donald Duck's 1998 Jeep struck a GMC van twice in the drive-thru. Officers also confiscated a bag of suspicious marijuana.
As opposed to non-suspicious.
As opposed to non-suspicious marijuana, yeah. No, don't worry, officer. It's just non-suspicious.
Wait, what state was this?
Marijuana.
Ohio.
This was Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, they confiscated that during
He's
the
gonna
arrest.
get points off of his license.
According to jail records, Mr. Duck has 4 previous drunken driving convictions, according to court records. So it's not a particularly crazy story, although he did crash into the GMC van 2 times in the drive-thru. So the first time wasn't good enough. He had to hit it again. But the fact that the man's name was Donald Duck, Donald Duck arrested for drunk driving. And I don't know if you saw the photo when it went up.
His parents did that to him.
It was perfect. His parents, by naming him Donald. Can you imagine? You'd either become a guy that gets drunk and runs into people in the Little Caesars, takeout line,
yeah.
or
Also,
you'd become a badass and you'd just kick everyone's ass
You
in the
don't
playground.
suppose anyone teased him when he was young about that?
Yeah, well,
did
that's the thing. It's like the whole.
That's like the boy named Sue.
Yeah, it's
thing,
like the whole
right?
Johnny Cash thing.
They're
Exactly.
gonna make you tough.
So
Oh,
I
no.
apologize. I should have silenced my phone.
Okay, so you know what's happening right there is your car warranty is about to expire.
Oh, dude, that's been
Definitely.
happening to me a lot
In
lately.
3 years.
My car warranty has expired so many times.
They call me about that all
They
the time.
call me all the time.
My car's a year old.
My favorite is when they call me about my high credit card balance. I go, "Oh, great, thanks." Which card are you speaking of? Silence.
Oh man, I did that, and the guy was like, "Oh, your Capital One card." I
Oh.
was like, "Oh man, that one's really high." and then, because I was on my way to work, I had nothing else to do for 20 minutes. So then I sat there and kept interrupting the guy, how excited I was to get my my credit cards paid down, and finally on my way, I was walking through the front door at work, and I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, by the way, I don't actually have any credit cards." And this guy started going, "Oh, you MF, blah, 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 time waster." And I started laughing. I was like, "You called to scam me? And I'm the asshole for
that's
wasting
right.
your
That's
time?"
right, yeah. That's a great
Should have
story.
asked him for a credit increase.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah. That's really good. So speaking of really good, Barrel Fruited Sour. Now tell me again about the origin of the name.
So Beryl Markham is the first woman to cross the Atlantic solo, I believe, from west to east.
Okay.
So the beer itself, fruited sour, raspberry red currant, and we do our fruited sours very traditionally. We re-ferment over the fruit there, all natural fruit, so you don't get as much of the kind of sweet smoothie forward type.
Right. This is
fruited
more
sour.
of a true sour.
It is. So you're going to get a tart element in there now, and this finishes pretty low, but you still get that residual essence of the fruit there. So it's still going to have a feeling of sweetness, but still finishes pretty dry. Should be balanced a little bit. Still a little tart though. I mean, it's still going to come through.
Well, I enjoy the St. Arnold Raspberry AF. But to me, the addition of the red currant to this
Is really,
brings this
really a
whole
masterful
other
stroke.
thing. Yeah, it really is. I'll let you take the can and show that off there to the camera. But no, this is really delicious. And, I do run into people from time to time who say, I just don't like sour beers. And I always think, let me pull a couple together for you to try, because you may have not tried the right sour beers.
And we get a lot of that in the tap room
you know?
as well. And at the end of the day, again, I mean, our whole mantra there is trying new things, bringing people in. I don't expect everybody to like everything, but give it a shot.
Right.
And I'm actually always surprised by it's never stereotypical. It's always surprising to me. Somebody walks in, it could be any form of human that walks in that says, oh, you know what? This is my bag. I'm really enjoying these now. Let's go ahead and line up. What else you got? We have, you mentioned the Sally earlier. That's a strawberry rhubarb sour. We have Vera that's coming out a little bit later. That's Marionberry and boysenberry. So we do a lot of fun different sours. We have a straight American sour just base as well. Our Goza is currently available in the tap room as well. And some of these are just tap room exclusives. Not everything comes in the can, right? So the Goza itself is named Fredericks, and it is highlights just a traditional German style Goza with sea salt and coriander, right? So not any fruit at all. I mean, it's actually, I really enjoy it because of that salt element and the sour. It really, that one really does invite you to kind of take the next sip,
How many of your beers will be available at Specs, for instance, or out and distributed?
Yeah, so everything we've tasted today is available.
Okay.
We've got one or two other additions. The Ben's House I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and tell us about the Ben's House. That's an IPA as well, right?
It is. It's a Ben's House IPA. It's a West Coast inspired IPA that we finish off with an English style yeast, which actually does end up balancing a little bit. So we call it our friendly IPA because of that yeast strain. It doesn't end up elongating those kind of more stringent elements. So you have a nice West Coast, more sea hop, Centennial Cascade, Columbus inspired or infused IPA. But so it is a little more piney on the front end, but it doesn't really have that real tannic linger. So you take a sip, it's nice, and it's a little more friendly, and you can kind of go on to the next one.
I think the people like Ian who really don't like that that sort of piney vibe that IPAs can give off, it really has more to do with how much it lingers on the finish. You can handle it.
To do it, yeah.
You can handle it more in the in the actual middle of the palate. But if it stays with you and makes you kind of go,
if I gotta take a drink of Malort to get rid of the IPA,
if you got to take a drink of Malort for any reason, some boundary has been crossed.
Right.
But anyway, that's really interesting.
So then the other one, I'll just wrap up real quick, has it's a small giant, which is a Neil Armstrong quote about basically being on the moon and looking back and feeling small.
Like a small.
Yeah. Right. I mean, they were asking me, you feel like a giant up there? No, I'm feeling very small, right? Small giant.
Okay.
And obviously all of our names have a tie to that. So, but that's a grisette, which is a petite saison. So again, if you like the saison, the little pepper spice kind of character that a traditional saison provides, this is a little subdued, but great. It's about 4.5%, nice, and you'll be able to find
It's
that
a
one.
nice, easy to drink.
Right.
and in your tap room, you guys have growlers, crowlers. So everything is available.
Yeah, so technically everything's available. You can get crowlers to go. We do 2 packs,
even if you don't
4-pack
have
specials.
them pre-done, you can.
Yeah,
you can whip those
absolutely.
up.
And we got a couple of bottle editions as well that are, really longer projects that we've done some food or wood aging with that have, sat around for a good while, getting a lot of that wild, more funky characteristics. The sweaty pineapple, the hay, the barnyard type farmhouse ales that are a little bit more of a sophisticated palate, I would say.
So much great experimentation,
but
though.
obviously have a lot of layers and complexity to them too, and we sell those in 750, 500 ml bottles, right?
So you said sophisticated palate. My friend that gave me that bottle of Malort would say, challenging to appreciate.
I don't think
Yeah,
you're
but
really.
you'd be surprised again how many people come in, try something, and go, I've never had a damn thing like this in my life, and
Yeah, I like.
this is it.
But
This
see,
is-
like,
this
so
is
when
where
I go in,
need to
when I
live.
go in, I want to try as far out as you got, because
Yeah.
I really want to try different.
Yeah.
You know, I may end up drinking a pale ale or a porter or something like that, but I really definitely want to try as far out as you got, because that's just the way. That's fun to me, you know.
Yeah,
Ian-
absolutely, and
Ian,
that's what we encourage doing.
I just wanted to let you know I just got an alert on my phone. Apparently, you have committed a broadcasting violation. You're not allowed to say sophisticated palate and malort in the same sentence.
Oh,
So, we may have to pay some sort of a penalty.
there's going to be some kind of fine.
We're gonna have to redo the episode now.
So,
All right, let's start
wanted
over.
to-
We got beers.
I wanted to get you to weigh. Yeah, that's right. I think we got enough to work too. I wanted to get you to weigh in on this and see if this was a problem at all, or that you guys could face, or other craft brewers in our area. Craft brewers in Massachusetts have been trying to keep up with the demand for beer during the pandemic, but are facing a new hurdle in the form of a shortage of aluminum cans.
That's what I was gonna guess.
Oh, and I was going to
That's
give
okay.
I was going to
It's
give you a
okay.
chance to guess.
Lead
and
the
I-
witness a little bit.
My bad. But
No.
but is that a thing?
Yeah, and it's everywhere. It's not
Not just Massachusetts,
No,
okay.
we're having the issues here as well. We actually just got a new order in today, as a matter of fact, for some more cans to backfill.
In other words,
It's-
drink your beers, recycle your cans.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% do that. And interestingly enough, you know what the driver is? It's all the seltzers and the
Is it
different
really?
things. So
It's this whole new. Well,
at the
and,
end of
and
the
there's
day-
there's also been a huge move in the last 3 years of craft beer, at least, from bottles to cans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I
Cans are
appreciate.
just hugely on the rise, and there's only so much aluminum to go around, so they allocate all this aluminum to these different size parameters, right?
Right.
And now you've got these kind of slim cans and the seltzers and the canned wine that are really coming up, so they're allocating more of this aluminum to those size standards, and they're taking it away from the 12 and 16 ounces, right?
Also-
so it's just becoming strain in the market, and then you have the obviously the pandemic going on,
Right.
that everybody's production has really kind of had to pivot and look at that
Right.
distribution methodology
Well-
going into cans, and we're no different.
Is
right?
this going to
Absolutely.
push it? Is this going to push the market back? You think if they have too much of the can, the lack of cans, do you think it's going to push the market back to going to bottles?
Actually, I don't think so. I mean, there's some things that I
Cans
think
are way easier to.
they are, and I think the industry today and the consumer
Do.
today just really has adopted them full force. They really enjoy them. Bottles at this point have
Some of
really
us-
kind of earned their spot, I would say, on some higher echelon beers. Now, when you come in and you see beers, at least you go down the specs aisle and you see what's in bottles, those are $12+
Yeah,
kind of
I mean,
items.
there's a certain physical feel to a bottle, especially a nice bottle. When you pick it up and you go, okay, that like great presentation, for instance, is the Goose Island, the Bourbon Barrel Stout. Like
Right.
when you pick
And
up
they're-
that bottle, you feel like you're picking up something that's
Sure.
very distinctive.
Right.
And there's a place for that. I'm a big fan of cans because of the lack of UV and all the different things that can happen in a bottle, and especially like bottles, like beers that come in green bottles or clear bottles.
Yeah, but I'm not drinking.
Like,
any
what
of
is
those.
wrong with
Right,
Newcastle?
right,
Why do
right,
they do
right.
that?
I think
it's
to your
so
point-
good when it's not in a bottle.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
think
Well-
the price point too to your earlier assessment is that when you do go get one of those Goose Islands, which is a big beer, but we won't talk about it.
It didn't start out that
it
way,
didn't,
though.
it didn't.
I
But-
hate that it is, but everyone knows that one. So
But
I
if
use
you're
that
going to
as
go
the
buy a
familiar.
$20, $30 bottle, you're going to buy a bottle, right?
Yeah.
If I gave you a 750 milliliter can and said it was $30, you'd be like, I don't know about
Well, you know what?
this. Why
You
am
know
I
what?
buying a can?
Martin House has been doing. They started doing the tall box, and they're
with,
putting
with
the
two
two
12
cans
ounces
in
in
there.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just mention, anytime we bring up Goose Island, I just feel compelled to mention how much we enjoyed.
As much as we don't want to put money in AB InBev's pockets.
Yeah, but I have to mention how much we enjoyed having the author of Bourbon Barrel Stout and Selling Out on the show.
Oh, he was awesome.
He was awesome, and that is such a great book. If you're
Have you read
even,
this?
if you're even
outstanding.
marginally interested in craft beer, it is a great cautionary tale, and he approaches it very fairly. He doesn't come at it with a biased viewpoint, but he does a great job of reporting on it. So anyway, it's a great book. You can get it Amazon and any place else I think that you buy books. But we recommend it very highly. I'm a big fan of beer in bottles. In my mind, I will not drink a beer in a can unless I just have absolutely no choice. It's got to go into a glass and preferably a chilled glass.
That's the way I generally do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing that.
I'll
though.
drink a beer out of a bottle.
But you know
though, if
what'll
it's
make
cold.
a difference? You have a little like can/bottle opener that has the sharp end on it.
Yes.
If you take it and you punch what they call a little speed hole right on the backside of
That
that,
doesn't have anything to do with keeping it cold. The reason I
that's
don't,
called a koozie.
but no, it doesn't work. Koozies do not. Let's
Are
call
you-
it here and now. Koozies do not work.
Oh man, I got one of
well
those metal
enough.
Arctic
I live
ones.
in
Those things
Houston,
rock.
Texas.
Those work.
Yeah.
I live in Houston, Texas. I challenge you to drink a beer, unless you're just shotgunning the thing, in the middle of the summer outside in Houston, Texas, that is in a can, and have it still be cold when you get to the end. And I'm an
Now,
outlier
don't
in
you
this. I
have-
know it.
Don't you
I
have one
want
of those little
cold
Yeti
beers.
koozies?
I do.
And they work amazing.
Okay, but I had to buy an accessory to make that work.
True. But
If it's-
bottles don't do any better out in the sun.
Oh, they do much better. Are you kidding me? They stay colder much longer. Okay, just because you have the sound effects box doesn't make you right. You're not my ex-wife.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But she sounded like both of those from time to time. All right. I really want to thank you, Michael, for coming in. Michael Duckworth is from True Anomaly Brewing. We have tasted really very, very outstanding beers. And to me, I think it says so much about the future of craft brewing to have a brewery that's as young as you guys come in and have 4 beers that are this good. I mean, it really encourages me about the whole way things are being done. And I realize these
Thank you.
maybe even, some of your more mainstream things. You were talking about, you've got some really specialty things in bombers and other things that, those would be very interesting to taste as well. I love that you're experimenting, but I love that what you've brought to, some really mainstream styles, in New England IPA and a pale ale,
yeah.
and the Saison. I thought was just absolutely terrific, and one of my favorites that I've had. It's it's just a tribute to what you can do if you're 4 rocket scientists who start a brewery. Wait, that didn't come out exactly as I intended
Anybody
it to.
can do it.
But-
You got it right. Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. It's not rocket.
Oh wait, yeah, maybe it is. So you guys in the Houston area, you guys are now available at a number of the Specs locations, and you've still got obviously, people can still come to the brewery and sample. How many different kinds of beer will you have on tap at the brewery at any
We got
one
about
time?
a dozen.
About a dozen.
On tap, right.
So that's quite a bit to choose
Just
from. I like
FYI
it.
for anybody coming into the Houston area, if you find yourself standing there looking at the George R. Brown Convention Center, you are
Yeah,
blocks
you're
from this
super
brewery.
close. Yeah, and can
Yes.
people swing by and just grab beers to go? Is that
Yeah,
cool?
absolutely. We got to reach in. You can grab anything we've had today, and then also just hang out in the tap room. We're open every day at 2:00, noon on the weekends, open till 10 midnight. I mean, in between, certainly you can find something in between those hours to come hang out with us.
Last question: do you feel like it helped you guys to not be further down the road, further vested in, whatever it was that you had going on when the pandemic hit, and you had to kind of take a step back and reconfigure? Do you think? Because I've noticed that it feels like some of the breweries that are super established and have great distribution are weathering it pretty well because they're in the stores and maybe even in the supermarkets. And then it feels like maybe the new guys were able to pivot a little faster. But where did this find you guys in terms of?
Yeah, I'd say probably fell somewhere in the middle there, honestly. So again, pretty young, 1.5 old, year when the shit hit the fan for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
'Cause
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we certainly would have appreciated being a little bit more established in the retail market.
In the distribution
The
game,
canning, I would say, again, was a big piece of us getting back to normalization. would have loved to have had that under our belt already. We were really focused on the tap room, and like I said, we had great
So,
success with that. But
did you guys have
just
to
got
get
stunted.
someone outside to come can for you, or did you have to?
No, well, we
install
we reached out.
system?
We did a lot of things. I mean, again, in mid-March, we started getting information that there's some shutdowns were coming. Immediately, we started looking at opportunities to get some mobile canning type operations going.
Yeah.
I know
And,
a lot of breweries use those mobile canning tins.
but within a week, I would say, we were in middle discussion saying, okay, what can we do? What can we do to get you in? How we set this up, yada yada. And they said, hey, honestly, we've gotten inundated to the point that we are only going to be able to service our current accounts and existing accounts, right?
Wow.
So that's where, and at the same time, in parallel, we were looking at canning ourselves. And again, we execute, very
This was
quickly.
part of your plan. It just got accelerated a bit,
very
right?
quickly, within, I would say, a week, 2 weeks, 10, 14 days of the shutdown happening, we had already put in our purchase order for this canning line. And then there was just a
That
long
puts
lead
you just
ahead
a little
of
ahead
that,
of
right?
everyone else who went, oh no.
Yeah, so I would say again, just from being ready, we were young and we were already looking at some of these facets and distribution methodologies. So just having to execute it a little quicker on, and then obviously with cash flow being a little tightened, that was
Sure.
probably the more difficult part. How are we going to
Because most
get
of
to
your
that, knowing that for at least, and we didn't know then, but for about 6 months there, we didn't have any taproom operations.
I was just saying, if most of your revenue's coming from the tap room,
Right,
all of a
so-
sudden, nothing's going into the register.
Right.
Only things are going out.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well-
I would recommend definitely diversifying a little bit earlier at this point. If I had to look back on it, but who predicted this thing?
Well, a lot of
I
if you had bar accounts too, where you were supplying kegs and stuff, that all that shut down too.
Right,
That's
right.
a huge
So
part of
it's the
it,
same thing, right? We weren't open; they weren't open either,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
it's not like, that's where we found our core business being. So, as you indicated earlier, Cruz, that if you were a larger business and you were already established in the Krogers and the HEBs and the Specs,
Yeah.
and people were, and if you look at the numbers, so, alcohol sales have gone up; they haven't
Yes,
gone down,
right. People
So-
are drinking at home.
Right, right.
Yeah,
but they're just
absolutely.
going to that location, or they're having it delivered to them at this point, where they're just saying, give me what's on the shelf. So not having that shelf presence in the early time definitely took its bite out of us. But later on, it definitely, now we're getting back in line, and it pushed us in that direction. I'm okay with it. We end up now at the end of the year, Q4, tap room's back open. Other places are back open. We're able to feed those markets with distribution, and now we got this canning line operation going. So we're rolling and going now, and couldn't be happier.
Love it.
Here is hoping that these spikes that we're seeing in COVID cases don't lead to us needing to, pull back on what's open. I'm seeing it happen in Europe, and I'm just hoping we can somehow escape that. But our track record isn't too good here in the U.S. It really isn't. So anyway, we wish you the best, and we love your beers, and we will tell everybody about your beers because that's kind of what we do. We don't have much of a life outside of this kind of stuff. So, so we really appreciate you coming in and sharing these with us, and we'll be by to visit you as well.
I appreciate it.
Find
Thank
us
you for
on
having me
YouTube, on Facebook.
Yes.
Hit the like and subscribe on YouTube if you're on there.
And be sure to support our sponsor, mycigarshirts.com, because cigars. Have a wonderful week, everybody. And as we like to say at the end of the show, cheers, y'all.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Is the